Hey loves, I wanted to share an article with you. It's from sheknows.com and it's under their health and wellness, mind and body section. It's by Amanda LaFleur. She wrote it September 22nd, 2021, and it's called, I didn't know how to explain my grief to my family when my ex-boyfriend died. The morning started off like every other morning of my current life. While the kids were having breakfast and beginning their day, I hopped online to see what was going on in the world. I scanned through USA Today and the Huffington Post for the latest news, and then I moved on to Facebook, Twitter, and emails, where I'm normally inundated with cat videos, political memes, and the latest hashtag trends. But today, Facebook had some unexpected news. During the night, an old boyfriend of mine had passed away. His name was Dave, and he was only 42 years old. Unlike the days before social media when people broke up and worked hard to never speak again, I have, for the most part, kept a passive connection to my ex-boyfriends through social media. There has never been anything scandalous about this. No private conversations that shouldn't have been had or any hidden innuendos to what was once between us. Just casual likes on posts about new relationships, jobs, or babies. Maybe happy birthday when a reminder popped up in my feed. Everything was simple, innocent, and indicative that healing had happened post-breakup and that everyone had happily moved on. While my days before marriage were filled with frivolous romances, I had 4 relationships I'd considered serious in my adult life. The 4th one being the man that I married. Each of them had met my parents, maybe siblings too, and I had met theirs. We lived together during our relationship, and I was even engaged to one for a while before things ended quite dramatically. There is only one of the 4 serious relationships that I am not connected with in mine today. Therefore, hearing that one of my ex-boyfriends had passed away brought up many unexpected and confusing emotions. For one, this information comes as a complete surprise to me. I only vaguely knew via Facebook that Dave hadn't been feeling well. I had no idea how serious his illness really was. When I first read one of his passing, I immediately texted my husband at work, who called me right away. My husband knew a little of Dave, but over time he became less of an ex-boyfriend and more of a character in the stories we shared of the past. After we broke up, Dave and I were still friendly and spoke often by the phone while I was traveling cross-country for work. When I met my now husband, I was immediately smitten. As our relationship progressed, my chatting with Dave petered out as chatting with old boyfriends tend to do. We reconnected years later on Facebook, and I learned he had married and had children, divorced, and then married, I believe, again, and I believe he divorced again too. None of this surprised me, as our own relationship was filled with ups and downs, ultimately ending on New Year's Eve after a particularly nasty fight. It's been nearly 15 years since Dave and I broke up. To feel any sense of grief or loss now is confusing. And until late in the day, I truly wasn't sure what I felt or why. Because of circumstances and time, I feel I have no right to feel sad. I have no intimate knowledge of him or who he was in the last days of his life. I'm only one of his 800 Facebook friends and probably one of many ex-girlfriends. What I do have are these inexplicable and conflicting emotions. When someone we were once close to dies, so many old emotions are revisited. With Dave, it was how he made me laugh and cry, and how the relationship ending made me feel. There is some comfort, however, in knowing I am most likely not unique or experiencing this alone. When someone we were once close to dies, so many old emotions are revisited. With Dave, it was how he made me laugh and cry, or how the relationship ending made me feel. My husband found himself equally confused today, as my emotions emotions transversed over valleys of ambivalence and apathy, as well as peaks of sadness and rage. That afternoon, my husband was going on a walk with our children, and my eyes filled with tears. I told him to be careful, life is limited, I said. He asked me if I was crying for Dave or for him, which made me pause. In the moment I said, you, of course. But soon after, I truly didn't know. Does not knowing mean I still have unresolved feelings for Dave? With certainty, I can say absolutely not. If I did, I would not be married to the man I married. The feelings I do have are natural, however, in that someone I once loved a great deal has died. Despite the fear or anger or sadness I once felt toward Dave, of which I have long since let go, there was also a time he made me feel very special and valued. It's the love that we carry with us, as anger and regret are far too heavy to hold on to long term. Because I am human, because I am capable of love, and because I give it and receive it wholeheartedly, it's naturally to feel a sense of renewed loss when another soul dies, especially one we once knew so well. The worst part about grieving the death of an ex is grieving alone. Grief in and of itself is such a solitary process. But in a situation like this, it's easy to be viewed as overly dramatic or undeserving. Friends may not understand why you would mourn someone so far removed from your present life, especially for someone with which things ended so badly. In my case with Dave, we had long ago made our amends. There were no more grudges or unrequited emotions. We were friendly, and simply that. It's natural to grieve when a friend of any magnitude passes. Still, I find myself over-explaining and under-supported, as it may be hard for others to understand. It's especially hard for those who are currently closer to me than he was on the day that he died. So where is the healing supposed to come from? Being so fresh to this news and this experience, I'm not sure I readily know. Until a few hours ago, my husband didn't know the depths of my relationship with Dave because it was ancient history. He was 2 boyfriends before my husband, and that was again nearly 15 years ago. My husband only knew the tidbits that I had told him. I thought the details were fairly insequential to the person I would eventually become. Yet just today I found myself completely unable to articulate my emotions. Following a huge fight, my husband and I finally got to the crux of what was really going on. I felt so much, but didn't know what I felt or why. Knowing some of the reasons doesn't make it easier. Make no mistake, I am not sad for myself. I have not lost someone who has been sewn into the fabric of my everyday life. I am, however, incredibly sad for his family, his large and gorgeous and affectionate family who has lost someone they love so dear. I am heartbroken for the children that have been left behind. I am angry about his actions and addictions that ultimately led to his demise. Lastly, I am devastated. Someone so troubled yet so magnanimous got so few birthdays in his short and limited life. I also understand my own grieving will ultimately be far less than those who were there with him in the end. But I have to acknowledge that it is still there. Understanding the feelings that can happen when an ex-boyfriend dies can be healing in and of itself. Others may not be readily sympathetic or perceive the complexity of such a situation, but take comfort in knowing that you are not alone. Other women have felt as you do now, possibly even a friend you've passively connected to on Facebook. Wow, she ended it just like that. I appreciated this article so much. Thank you, Amanda LaFleur. I have felt so alone in this situation. When an ex passed away, it literally, I just couldn't even explain the emotions. We weren't together. We had broken up for years. Like, you were able to put this beautifully in a way that I was not able to. And as I'm working on a trauma and emotional journal, this is going to help me communicate those feelings a bit more, and I just wanted to share it with the world. I have a podcast, but sometimes I can make the podcast long by reading articles, so I just decided to read my articles on this on one of my many YouTube pages dedicated to books and articles and magazines and newspapers. And so I'll just read things that touch my soul here, and if I mention it on my podcast, I can just say, hey, you can go there to hear the whole thing. But I know I'm not the only one. She mentioned it. I found a whole bunch more articles and YouTube videos on people that have really felt sad for their ex. And grieving the loss of someone just proves how much love you have for them. And you know, that's okay. Grief is just acknowledging the love that you have for someone, and that's perfectly okay. So I hope you guys enjoyed this article, and I hope you have an amazing